What's up, guys? It's Eventon here, and so this is actually a continuation of the solo high sec Exhumer mining fits that I made last month. I actually did the Mackinaw. This time around, we are actually combining the Hulk and the Skiff together, mainly because I wanted to really streamline these fits together. I think my last video I had like 4 or 5 different fits. This time around, we're just going to have basically a yield fit, a tank fit, and an ice mining fit that you guys can use as well. So in this video, just as a disclaimer, like I said in the last video, I don't recommend that you guys use Exhumers for solo high sec mining, because it does put a huge target on your back, mainly because these ships usually cost anywhere between like 7 to 10 times more than the barge. The amount of yield that you get out of it doesn't make a huge difference, especially if you're doing it solo. If you are in a fleet, it does incrementally help out a lot with the yield, and you're doing it over a long period of time, which is why most of the Exhumers are built for more fleets and not so much solo high sec. But it's not my job to tell you guys how to play your game. I remember posting some of my Mackinaw fits last time, and a lot of people were saying there's no such thing as a solo high sec Mackinaw fit, don't even bother, just fly Procure or Skiff or whatever it is. And I think that's the wrong mindset, at least in my mind. There's going to be people out there that love the Mackinaw, but maybe they just don't have the means, or they just don't want to risk it flying it in low or null sec. So they just want to, fly it out there. And so I think it's part of my job to at least provide the information. Even though some of the fits and the ships aren't as optimal as possible, some other ships or fits, I still at least want to provide the information. And I think at the very least, it was a good challenge for me. So I at least enjoyed that aspect. And in this case, one thing I did want to cover before we jump in the fits is because the gankers have actually adjusted since the last time I've made my video. Like I said in my last video, 95% of the ganks are done in catalysts, usually targeting thermal and kinetic. This is typically like the ammo type they use. They either use the Caldari Navy antimatter as like the tier 1 ship, so under like 3 million. So this is kind of like the really inexpensive ship. If they're trying to hit something relatively big, or I'm not really sure how they determine what ship to use between T1 and T2, but these are the two fits. The CPU is overloaded because this is my alt account. It doesn't have max skills, so it's going to be a little overloaded. But one ship that I have been seeing them use over the last couple weeks, and it's been in about 20% of the high sec ganks, which is the Coercer, using these multi-frequency lasers. So they are hitting the EM hole on a lot of these ore ships and miners really, really hard. As you can see, the majority of the damage is in EM, followed by thermal. So I actually had to go back to some of my old Mackinaw fits, and I'm gonna have to do it eventually for the barges too, and actually make the resistances a little bit more balanced, because I was completely ignoring EM because just statistically they were mostly done in catalyst ganks. But now that the Coercer is involved slightly more often, I tried to make the resistances a bit more balanced, and especially since some of the ganks did actually have a combination of Coercers and catalysts. So I've already updated all that stuff. I'm going to put a link down in the description of that video with the updated fits. I did it on Eve Workbench as well, so everything should be updated. And it seems like the gankers have gotten smarter, but that's why we're making this video, because it is our job too as miners to react to that and be able to resist it as much as possible. So we'll go ahead and jump into the fits. All right, so now we're gonna actually start off with the Hulk. This is the tank Hulk. I know it's probably a bit of a meme to even like mention this, but I mean, this fit actually could help you survive a really unprepared pair of gankers that are, if you're mining in like 0.9 or higher, if 2 catalysts come after you with this on, you might be able to survive this. But any more catalysts, or if you're in lower security than that, you're likely gonna die. But again, I at least wanted to present it to you guys. I do use T1 field extenders here instead of T2, because these only cost about like 1.5 million each. The T2 versions are like 20 million, so I just did not feel like it was worth an extra, basically 15-20% of the overall price to get slightly higher EHP. Again, I would have actually had this in the past be probably a thermal or a kinetic shield hardener, but because we have those coercers flying around, I did actually want to increase some of that EM damage, or that EM resistance, a bit higher than what's being shown. So it went from 30 to 47 with this multispectral, and the amplifiers are the Domination ones, very similar to the Mackinaw. These ones are actually enable us to have a lower CPU and still have that resistance be really high, and the field extender here as well. And so everything else is pretty self-explanatory. We have the DCU and the lows, and I've always been using T2 miners in the highs. If you guys use T1s, that's fine. Everything should still fit just as normally. I have a yield Hulk here. And so this is just maximizing your yield. And so the reason why I actually have the Microwarpdrive here is to enable a 10-second align time. So if you notice some code gankers warp into local and you see them, the first thing you want to do is turn on that Microwarpdrive and start aligning. Double click it so it only goes one cycle. Being able to align in 10 seconds versus 14 is a huge deal. And so basically your main defense here is just getting out of the belt before they can warp in. Because, I mean, honestly, 99 times out of 100, no matter what your fit looks like in a Hulk, if they're on grid and they lock you, you're dead. But at least in this case, the Microwarpdrive will help you get out of grid or off the grid a little bit faster in case you just see them in local a bit late. Again, the overclocking unit is just to enable the Microwarpdrive, and we're going to maximize our yield with the mining lasers here in the lows. And we actually are able to save a bit of money using the compact ones instead of the Dominations. And again, tier 2s in the highs. The Ice Hulk, I had to fidget with this a little bit just because the Ice Harvesters use a bit more CPU than normal. Same thing with this. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of ice mining. I've never done it personally, and it just seems like it's a really big gank spot for miners and gankers, and so I don't recommend it at all whatsoever. But if you were doing it, I do have a processor overclocking unit for the, again, Microwarpdrive, as well as the Ice Harbor accelerator here in the rig, just so, I mean, your only defense here is basically just to mine as much as you can, fill up your ore hold and get out, or start putting stuff in the container, and then when you start seeing danger, just warp out as fast as you can. You can do whatever you want with the mids here. Again, honestly, most of this doesn't really matter, because if they're on grid and they're hunting you, you're gonna die. I was just messing around with this. I actually put in some drone navs just in case for, a yield drone thing, like if you're using drones a lot, just to have them come back as quick as possible. Just messing around with it. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the Skiff. And now we're on to the Skiff, which is arguably the best solo high-sec mining exhumer in the game, honestly, for the exact same reasons as the Procure. I mean, it's honestly just cheaper than the other two, at least when a fully fit version. The other reason is it's super tanky. I mean, this is the yield version, and it has 85,000 EHP, which the other two are maybe pushing 25,000 if it's like maximally tanked and sacrificing some yield. And the other reason is that, I mean, this thing is probably going to be targeted last in a system if there's going to be other Mackinaws and Hulks, like obviously in that system. So if gankers are in the system, they're scanning down the area looking for what to gank. They see a Mackinaw, Hulk, and Skiff, you're more than likely going to be targeted last. I think they would rather take out a Hulk and a Mackinaw with 8 catalysts than one Skiff using all 8. Like, they would rather have 2 kills than 1. So looking at all these, honestly, the fits are almost all going to be relatively identical. The nice thing is, because the Skiff has such a large CPU and like power grid versus the other 2 ships, it's going to be pretty universal. So in this case, we have 3 mining laser 2s in the lows, and all these fits are always going to have 2 shield extenders and 3 hardeners in the mids, except they're going to be kind of a mix between T2 and the compact versions, because we do have limitations with the power grid and the CPU. So as you can see, we have a multispectral hardener T2 here, but the other 2 are compacts, and this is a compact shield extender medium, and this is a T2 medium. So it looks a bit weird, but it's the best that we can possibly do with what the requirements are. And again, T2 field extenders, because we really want to maximize our EHP as much as possible. And for the Ice Skiff, I had to mess with this a little bit, just like with the other one, just because the Ice Harvesters and the Ice Harvester upgrades take up so much more CPU than like the normal mining upgrades. So in this case, I did actually add a medium ice harvesting accelerator, because the faster we can mine ice and fill up our ore hold, the sooner we can get off the belt and less likely to get ganked. Again, T2 field extender, and the exact same story here, T2 extenders and compact versions of the hardeners and extenders here, as well as the damage control too. And again, I mentioned it in my last video, but if you're able to invest in a abyssal damage control, it will help a ton. It's not going to increase the shield resistance, but it will increase the hull, or like the structure resistance, which could make the difference between surviving, and it's something that they could not predict. And now we're on to the tank version. And so obviously this is an extremely thick ship. like I said before, because of the huge power grid in the CPU, there are a lot of people that do bait versions of skiffs and procurers too, and honestly have it fit with warp scramblers, webifiers, damage controls, actually drones that could take people out in like a 1v1 fight in like low and nullsec, which are pretty funny to go over. So I'm actually do those fits another day. But again, I have all these multispectral hardeners, mainly because, again, those coercers started showing up. If that wasn't the case, I'd probably be really cranking up the thermal and the kinetic resistance. Like both of these would probably be over 85. But because, again, the coercers are showing up, we need to make this a bit more balanced. And if we actually overheat these, which again, most solo high sec, not solo high sec, but like most high sec ganks, depending on like the security system that you're in, they only take like 8 to 25 seconds. So they are really, really quick. I've seen some people talk about my fits and like, well, I'm going to use ECM drones and this and that. And, you know, if the fight drags out, it's like the fights don't really drag out. I mean, you're either dead instantly within 30 seconds or you're able to survive. And if we're actually overheating these shield hardeners, we're actually sporting 120,000 EHP. So it's going to take a lot of catalysts and or a lot of coercers to take us out. And so that's the whole reason for the tank skiff fit. This is the one I'm always flying on my alt account. This is the one that you should be flying as well in order to give yourself like the best chance to survive. And that's pretty much it, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. And like I mentioned in my last video, I really want to get to the meat and potatoes type of content when it comes to EVE Online. So back to build guides, back to content stuff. I am planning on maybe revisiting my barge fits that I did a few months back, actually a long time ago, and just seeing kind of some of the differences or the things that they've changed since then. And I do plan on making more videos in the near future, maybe even an alpha account series where I'm actually playing through as a relatively new bro, going through all the tutorial stuff and playing the game as a true alpha account character. So and especially with the Winter Nexus update, I finally was able to get this sweet skin for my skiff, which I think looks awesome. I really think the Glacial Drift skins look amazing on most ships in the game. So again, if you guys have any questions or comments about the fits that I've created, or maybe even some fits on ships that you guys want me to do in the near future, let me know down in the comments below. And don't forget to fly safe.